Howdy, folks, and welcome into the Smite Challenger Circuit. It is week number 3, and we have made the trek back to North America. You got Dimes, you got Kaizo, and Kaizo, we've got the Aaru Scorpions taking on the Xibalba Storm.
We do, and the Storm, a team that had a bit of a rough start to the season so far. They're 0-2, still hunting that first win. But Dimes, as we were talking about before we came on here, I think that the current meta and the climate with the different way that you play the game and the weird picks that are up and available right now, we've got assassins and warriors and unusual roles that we're not accustomed to them playing. I think this might be the best possible time to be a winless team still hunting down a win, because there are so many different options available to you and so many different ways that you can play the game in a way that's a little bit more unconventional and opens up some more opportunity when otherwise things might not have been working out.
And the Xibalba Storm have yet to find a win so far, but it's only week 3, right? So we've got a little bit more time to spin up. And it's not like they've been rolled over every time, right? Shippigami, Hapn,
Sure.
Globe, Ratmilk, Tegveer, they put together a great fight. But on the other side of the aisle, the Aaru Scorpions looked fantastic last week against the powerful Valhalla Valkyries.
Yeah, the Scorpions are definitely a team to not play around with. I mean, GuyJ has looked very good at the SPL level. He continues to look good down here at the SEC level. Migiiiiii in the jungle is always a threat that you got to keep your eyes on. There's so many different facets to this team. You can't just pick one singular strong point or weakness to kind of pick around it. You can definitely spread out the attention all across this team and still feel pretty good about whatever you got there.
Well, Kaizo, like you mentioned, the meta, a little bit in flux as we head into picks and bans for game number 1. I mean, we've seen Raijin in the solo lane. We've seen Amaterasu taking in the ADC role. We've seen tons of assassins in mid, right? I think pretty much the only thing we've seen consistently is a support being usually a guardian or a warrior pickup, right? We haven't seen any of those assassins taken to the support role. Mages have kind of fallen out of favor in the support role as well. As the Morgan is going to be immediately taken off the table.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely no chance that god is getting played this game. Terra and Athena, 2 of the more popular bans that we've seen coming out so far. And that's followed up by the Achilles out of the Scorpions. And these teams are rolling.
Yeah, they're rolling. And those of you coming in from the SPL today and got to watch that previous set where the Kings had some difficulties, we'll say, with this Morrigan when paired with the Cthulhu, I think that you are very much understanding how strong this god is. Bayroneri, one who very accustomed to piloting this character, so no surprise there that that's taken away. The surprise here for me, Dimes, is that Chernobog is our first pick, and the Aaru Scorpions actually opt to ban out the Ganesha. Now, make no mistake, the Ganesha, one of our top supports right now, does just about everything you would need a support to do pretty effectively and doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room for, making mistakes. It's a very forgiving kit that Ganesha has to work with. But I would think that Chernobog traditionally would be valued a little bit higher in that conversation, but obviously the Aaru Scorpions have some ideas in mind for how to deal with it, namely this Yemoja Freya duo lane, which just dumps out pressure like there's no tomorrow.
This Freya has been scary in 2 weeks leading up to this week number 3. However, we have seen teams successfully overcome the pressure and the damage from the Freya. Not too much early game pressure, more mid and late game. By just targeting her out early, making sure she dies before she can go up into the air with that Valkyrie's discretion. So the Storm going to have to play around that. Immediately answer with the Nike and the Thor, likely our solo and jungle picks. Kind of surprised. All right. The Scorpions took it out of my mouth.
One step
Kind of surprised the Storm didn't go for this Camazotz that we've seen. I mean, I personally, in every game I've casted, I've yet to see this Camazotz lose. Safety, damage, scales into the late game, mobility. There's nothing this god cannot do.
I disagree with you there, Dimes. The one thing that Camazotz does not do, and this isn't even arguable, he doesn't crowd control. That is just not something his kit has to offer. He definitely has those other things, but a pick like the Thor, which, by the way, Ratmilk, one of his signature picks, this Thor, has so much more lockdown, so much good long-range poke coming from that wall double-tap combo, and pairs actually quite well with this Nike, who traditionally has a very good backline presence, takes a long time to go down, but as far as prohibiting the enemy backliners from dealing damage, from feeling safe, you need crowd control, you need damage to achieve that goal, and Thor works very well in tandem with the Nike in providing that. See Baba Yaga and Marty Chorus banned out here, Dimes. from the Storm, and that leaves us Amaterasu still available and still up for the grabs, and the Aaru Scorpions go ahead and lock that one in.
We've got our solo lane matchup, we've got our jungle matchup, our ADC matchup. All that's left for the Xibalba Storm is their mid and their support. They're hovering old AP and Khepri. I can only imagine that's just like a troll situation. I mean, if the Xibalba Storm at week 3 with 0 wins are deciding to pick Apwash, they're kind of throwing in the towel on this matchup versus the Scorpions. And I mean, I have long-standing beef for the past couple years with Apwash, but we can get into that another time. As it's going to be the Zeus hover and the Zeus lock now. I love this pickup. You pair this Zeus, right? Highly immobile, but tons of glass cannon burst damage with a god like Khepri, who has a second life on that 4 button with the Scarab's Blessing, and all of a sudden, you're getting a second or third round of casts, you're getting a brand new ability kit online, you come back to life, you've got some speed. I really love this pickup from the Storm.
I totally agree, and I do think that it's worth noting that people don't often talk enough about how good Khepri is at killing specifically frontliners. That grab is a silence that also moves the enemy toward the rest of your team, where they can't escape the damage, you can't juke, you can't run away. And when you have something like a very potent crowd control like that, and you compare that with the outright damage output that something like Zeus has to offer, you're gonna have to be very carefully with how you're positioning if you're GIobe, if you're RelentlessOne on this Yemoja or on this Amaterasu, because if you get abducted when you're not anticipating it, and you don't have beads available, you don't have some form of safety tool available to you, that might just be the end of your life in one grab.
With the Aaru Scorpions locking in the Pele to round out their draft, we have our compositions, Kaizo, and we've got a game number 1 loaded up and ready to roll. The Xibalba Storm taking on the Aaru Scorpions here to kick off the Smite Challenger circuit for the weekend. Don't forget, folks, we start here in North America Friday nights, and then Saturday you get a full dose of both NA and EU SEC. Same thing goes for Sunday as well, I should mention, before and after the SPL. Tune in a little bit early and a little bit after the SPL to catch both EU and NA SCC action. And Kaizo, I can't overstate it. I really can't. This phase genuinely matters for these amateur teams. Like this, they are fighting for an opportunity to fight an SPL team to play in the World Championships. This isn't for gems. This isn't for like a small, a cash payout. This is for an opportunity to fight on the biggest stage.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys have that experience that is very potent when it comes to actually finding your way to those upper levels of competition, because once you get to that stage, once you face down some of these SPL teams, you end up against the Kings or the Leviathans or whoever it might be. A lot of teams might crumble under that pressure, but we're at the point, Dimes, where a lot of these teams are loaded with experience. Like, you can take a look at the Aaru Scorpions, for example. GIobe, a guy who's played at the top level, play GuyJ, also has that experience. I believe RelentlessOne has been up and around that echelon as well. So it's not like we're starved for talent, starved for competition down here. Anything but that, Dimes, as we go ahead and get jumped in here. And a jump in, actually, from Tegveer in this solo lane. The RelentlessOne on the Amaterasu is going to be very good in the late game, Dimes, but here in the early game, it is all Nike all the time in this matchup.
Yeah, my eyes are really on both sides of the map. We've seen RelentlessOne do it again and again and again for what feels like years at this point, right? And then Tegveer really liking what I'm seeing out of this solo laner in both weeks 1 and 2, even before that in the SOC and SCC as well. This solo lane matchup is one that I've had marked on my calendar, really looking forward to. And the same thing goes for this duo lane, Shippigami and Hapn. Shippigami is just a player that's etched in my brain and has been for some time. And then GuyJ and GIobe have really been flexing their stuff. Loved what I saw out of them in the Valhalla Valkyrie set last week.
And Hapn, a guy who just recently got his call up for this specific split. This is the first time we get to see him doing it at the SCC level. As we mentioned before, still hunting down that first win, but not for lack of trying, man. These guys are hungry for these wins and definitely want to make their names on the stage and try to get to, again, those later stages of play that you mentioned, where you get to play against an SPL team. You potentially get the opportunity to compete at Worlds if you can get there. But first, they've got to go game by game, and it's going to start with this dual lane action. Beads forced out there. GuyJ with the pluck.
Hapn pulls in the enemy ADC, but at this early on, I mean, sure, Shinigami has a little bit of damage online, but checking out the build, you got a Cowl, you got Death Gloves 1. GuyJ and Geno going to be just fine, especially with the extra healing on deck from this Yemoja. Now, something I did want to ask you about, Kaizo. I mean, at this point, it's so commonplace that we don't even really bring it up. But there's Assassin in the mid lane, Bayroneri taking Pele into the mid role. Against this Zeus specifically, right? Kind of immobile, like I mentioned, high damage, but also, you know, there's high execution there. Is that something you're keeping an eye on? You know, this Assassin maybe getting the edge on this Zeus in, you know, in the jungle or around objectives?
I think that it's good to point out because, well, first of all, with 2 Assassins for the Aaru Scorpions, I think it's worth noting that the one that we get in the mid lane, Bayroneri on the Pele, is not maybe the one I would have expected. I think that the Camazotz, particularly into Zeus, has a bit of a better 1v1 matchup and perhaps a little bit higher kill pressure. It's not to say that Bayroneri doesn't have high damage output on the Pele, because, well, this one very low there. He manages to get out. This Pele is very good at getting in, bursting one guy, and trying to get out, but Zeus doesn't really afford you that opportunity. Zeus kind of punishes you for that all-in playstyle, which is traditionally why I think, you know, Camazotz is a bit of a better matchup there. Kama can blink in, dump all his damage, wait for Zeus to commit some of those abilities, get that lightning storm on the ground, and then just comfortably self-banish into the bat out of hell and finish him off pretty cleanly. Instead, we do get the Pele, which has a lot higher burst damage early on. That crowd control can feel very potent, but it's much more unlikely to actually take these 1v1s in the early and middle stages of the game. You're probably looking to fight for the camps instead.
Rotation on the left-hand side here from Migiiiiii on the Camazotz, but the up-down from Shinigami keeps the ADC perfectly safe. Hapn's not quite done with this one, though. Root on to Geno. Shinigami thinks better of it, calls it off. You know, we saw those waves come out from the Yemoja, right? The River's Rebuke. I'm just kind of glancing casually over here at the Xibalba Storm globe. No movement. Hapn, dash. Shinigami, dash. Tegveer, jump. Ratmilk has the hammer, right? But your key targets, your Shinigamis and your globes, nowhere to go in that River's Rebuke. It's going to be a phantom shell here for Hapn sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's no mistake that the first active that Hapn's going for is going to be that shell, and we'll likely see, as you said, a very early upgrade to that one, especially because Hapn in particular, very susceptible to getting caught out. You need to be able to walk through that River's Rebuke as early and often as possible. Khepri, a god that you can put a lot of pressure on early on, as we see more pressure in the solo lane. Looks like it's going to be the dual lane fight for the Scorpions.
Oh, Hapn's in a bad spot, has the ultimate online, but it's just going to lock him in place. Smart call there from the Scarab, not blowing that ultimate on himself. First blood does go the way of the Scorpions, but at least Hapn can say, you know what? I've got the ultimate. I've got the actives. We'll be okay.
And Migiiiii's still sticking around over here to invade some of this farm. Shinigami doesn't want to give up the purple buff, but with Geno walking him down, might not have the option. Does have Globe on rotation as well, but it's a hit and run here for the Aaru Scorpions, and potentially the start of things to come. Dimes is, hang on, Globe caught out.
Think you're going to be just fine, though. No blink online here for Migiiiiii. Bayroneri has the ultimate. Globe's in a tough spot, right? Because you just started up the Book of Thoth. You got, what, 10 stacks on it now. So it's not like the Zeus is going to be smacking like he's going to be in 10 minutes when he's got that online. A little bit of penetration as well. So even getting caught out in the jungle right now, I mean, could spell a death sentence, like you said. This combination of Bayroneri and Migiiiiii, that's deadly to a low-powered, as of right now, Zeus.
And it's deadly to a Zeus at all stages of the game, which is actually a couple minutes ago where I was trying to go with that. You would traditionally think, Dimes, that when you're playing against a team that has such high dive, you would want a high safety god in the mid lane. GuyJ, not a whole bunch of safety, gets wall and hammer stunned. 1 HP on the Freya.
Oh, Guy is going down. It's just a matter of who gets the final auto attack naturally. Hapn gives it over to Ratmilk, who returns the kill from the Scorpions onto the Xibalba Storm. Jungler for jungler there. Now both of these roles have at least 1 kill to their name. Unfortunately, First Blood does give the edge there to the Scorpions, but what can Ratmilk and, by proxy, the Xibalba Storm's dual lane do with that kill?
Not a whole lot to speak of right now, especially considering the fact that GuyJ working his way toward this second power spike. I think that Telkine's ring is a big fight spike for you. And then once you get that Hasten ring online, that's when you go from, you know, if we're skirmishing, I feel very strong, to even just standing in lane with the enemy ADC. You feel incredibly strong in that matchup once you get that Hasten ring online. Just being able to chase them down, removing the auto attack penalty, which, by the way, no other class in the game is allowed to do anymore except for those physical characters, and Freya barely qualifies as one of them. Geno takes a bunch of damage, but surprisingly, GIobe does burn the ult there, doesn't get the kill. And it looks like a blue buff invade here, Dimes, for the Aaru Scorpions.
Migiiiiii hovering around the corner, Ratmilk standing still, allowing Migiiiiii to just do free damage for no reason. You gotta keep those feet moving, Ratmilk. Blue's gonna be tethered, pulled under tower. Migiiiii's not giving up on it just yet. At the very... No shot.
Huh?
Oh, that is tough. That is a...
Surely not, right?
Migiiiiii absolutely snagged that blue buff under the tower with the vampire bats there. And now they're going to grab the neutral totem as well. RelentlessOne dashes in onto Tegveer. He got that, right? Like, I'm not tripping.
You're not tripping, but GuyJ might be tripping. He's going to need some help over here. Looks like the dual lane is preparing for the fight around this shield buff. Bayroneri gets stunned out there by Ratmilk and won't be able to take the fight now, but Barrow's not done, man. He wants a shield buff.
I like Ratmilk moving to this left-hand side every time with that immobile Freya, dashing down, slamming down, rather, onto Bayroneri here in the left side lane.
Good
Crystals are out, but the explosion was just off the mark. GuyJ coming in clutch there with a whoop, keeps the mid laner Bayroneri alive. That could have been close. You explode that crystal, do a little bit of extra damage, maybe an auto attack from Ratmilk, and that is one dead Pele. Shout out to the ADC GuyJ saving the mid laner.
Bayroneri barely eking his way out of that one, and it would have been a very big kill for them to get, shutting down this mid laner who, level 11, the highest level in the lobby. GIobe meets that mark as well, but at least during that engagement was about a half level behind that mark. And Dimes, despite the fact that the Aaru Scorpions from top to bottom have a very aggressive looking composition, it's been pretty casual, pretty quiet so far in terms of interactions on the map. We've seen a lot of pressure in the side lanes, in particular around this Amaterasu Nike matchup. Not a whole lot of fighting in the mid lane.
RelentlessOne able to dash away safely. Tegveer with a couple shots, parting shots there on a RelentlessOne. And you bring up a good point. I mean, I see two immobile characters with a ton of damage in Zeus and in GuyJ here on this Freya, who has to burn the beads to escape the hug from Hapn. And neither one of these gods have gone down. I mean, the Freya's gone down once, the Zeus hasn't gone down at all. But one kill on two of these immobile gods, especially when you have a double assassin for the Scorpions. You got high kill pressure with Ratmilk. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the double global ultimates here from Shiπigami and the semi-global from Ratmilk. So rotations are going to be out the wazoo. Just hasn't seen it yet 10 minutes in.
Yeah, we're still well inside of the wazoo so far, Dimes, and nothing really to rotate to, at least so far. In particular for the dual lane, Shiπigami's ult is, like you said, global, but you don't get a whole lot of value out of those global cooldowns when all the fighting is happening right next to where you're at. And wouldn't you know it, Dimes, Gold Fury right next to where Shiπigami's at.
Things going down pretty quick. Hapn and Ratmilk are here. Ratmilk up in the air smartly. The Scorpions leash the Gold Fury, slamming down on GuyJ is the Thor, and deletes the ADC for the Scorpions. Geno locked down here from Hapn, and it is the Storm collapsing on the support for the Scorpions, who goes down a clean 2-4-0 for the Storm. Immediately rip on the Gold Fury here. Bayroneri's made the rotation. I mean, an ultimate here would certainly spell death for this Pele.
He would die for it, but does he go for it is the question. Xibalba Storm will secure the objective, and Barrow will see himself out. And that was weird, Dimes. I mean, like, the Scorpions pull that objective. They very clearly felt on the front foot, wanted to force something to happen. And with the timing for when they got off the objective, when they leashed it back to the neutral state and stopped dealing damage to it, it looked as though they were aware of the fact that Ratmilk was in the air. It could have been the Chernobog ult that was forcing them off, because that did go down at about the exact same time. But clearly they didn't know that Ratmilk was in the air. I mean, if GuyJ has the information that that might be coming his way, if somebody says, hey, Anvil of Dawn is up, Thor is going to land on you, you'd think maybe Valkyrie's discretion could keep him alive there, self-banish, get up into the air. Excuse me. Instead, no beads just straight up means the death of the Freya, and that was really the only advantage that the Storm needed to swing that one back around. And we've been flirting with a very small but somewhat noticeable lead for the Scorpions, now wrenched control of by the Storm.
Speaking of control over this beacon being fought over here by the Scorps and the Storm. It's going to be a 3v3. Keep your eye on Zeus. Still has that Lightning Storm online. Notably, didn't burn it at all in that Gold Fury engagement. Scorpions have the advantage here, and they're going to take down the Stygian beacon. But who cares when the team fight kicks off? A fantastic Phantom Shell to escape the River's Rebuke here from the Storm. Ratmilk deciding who is going to be the target of this ultimate. It's going to be Migiiiiii, who immediately heads up into the air, uses the CC immunity. Ult for ult. Junglers are going to be down for a little bit, but notably, Beacon heads the way of the Scorps.
Beacon does go the way of the Scorps, and their first, I would say objective, but the first objective they actually got, because again, they did try for that Gold Fury, it just didn't work out for them. And a great early rotation there from RelentlessOne. I think that if both solo laners show up at the same time, maybe the Storm don't get to, the Storm do get to position a little bit more effectively around that beacon, maybe look for a fight on their own terms, but because RelentlessOne got there when he did, got some early damage off and some presence of mind, we'll say, onto GIobe and preventing him from feeling quite so safe stepping up. It's just an easy grab for the Scorpions, who are continuing to play aggressive despite the fact that they lost the Gold Fury fight, which I think that that's the right way to play this comp. I mean, you can't hit a wall and then decide, oh, well, suddenly we can't play aggressively with all of these assassins we've picked, all the pressure we have. You got to keep slamming your head into GIobe.
Nice Lightning Storm there from GIobe to dissuade Bayroneri and Migiiiiii from following up. And that's kind of what the concern is. Bayroneri forced to ult and blink away from the danger of Ratmilk. Migiiiiii also has to get out of dodge. That was a lot expended just to escape the Thor. But back to my thought, Kaizo. Ratmilk's not done going wild here in the Gold Fury pit. Sure, there's pressure on GIobe from this double assassin composition. But you know what those assassins have to do? They got to get close. You know what happens when they get close? GIobe just drops a fat ultimate at his feet and does like 80% of their HP, and then Ratmilk crashes down from the sky and cleans it up, as the Scorpions are going to easily confirm this Pyromancer, not unless Tegveer has anything to say about it. The Storm are not able to capitalize. Scorpions grab that objective. RelentlessOne with the double stun just dash away and burn Shipiigami's ultimate. In the meanwhile, Geno locked down, but a wonderful Riptide there from the support. Going to stop any front foot here from the Storm. Okay. What we're not going to do is Shipiigami threading the needle there. Auto attack taking down Geno. It is a 5v3 in the middle lane. The Xibalba Storm, they lose the Pyromancer, but boy, oh boy, they want this tower.
Yeah, they are not done. Ratmilk going up into the air here. No beads for Bayroneri.
Ooh, tough crash down there for Ratmilk, but it's enough at least to make the Scorpions back off this tier 1 tower, which goes the way of the Xibalba Storm. They had a bit of a lead after that Gold Fury. Scorpions have clawed it back now, just about even. Call it 600 here for the Xibalba Storm at 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, you like something a little bit more substantial, as GuyJ is going to trade that gold lead right back, now in favor of the Scorpions with that tier 1 tower going down. And so far, I mean, these teams have been matching aggression for aggression, and I think the kill counter here is a bit deceptive. 4-1 for the Storm, but the Scorpions have been matching with objectives and pressure across the map. Speaking of objectives, Prima Fury goes down completely, almost completely uncontested. A couple of frontliners have to just watch on from the Storm. The Scorpions claim yet another objective.
And what a back and forth we've had so far throughout 16 minutes of play, where the Scorpions have been, you could argue, on the front foot of a lot of these engagements, forcing us to see some of these fights, but every single time it's punch and counterpunch, man. Xibalba Storm don't get the Pyromancer, get the middle tier 1 tower. Scorpions chase them out, punish the overextension of that middle tier 1 tower by grabbing that Primal Fury on the left-hand side of the map and keeping us pretty much at parity throughout the entirety of this game so far. And we're seeing a practical realization of the conceptualization of the dual lane. What I mean by that is, in theory, Shipiigami should be able to rotate very effectively, impact other parts of the map, and GuyJ should have all the pressure in the world around the shield buff and around early Gold Fury. We've seen both of those things to pretty significant effect so far. Shipiigami has been first to all of these fights. GuyJ has had control of all of these fights up until this one, as he eats a big fail not crit there from Shipiigami and has to forfeit this shield buff. But up until this stage of the game, we've seen 17 minutes of just the characters playing how the characters want to play. Gods aside, or excuse me, players aside, just the picks and just how you would think the game would be played out is exactly what we've seen so far.
Shi'igami snags the left lane tier 1 tower. As you've mentioned, Shi'igami's certainly been more proactive than GuyJ with these rotations. Makes sense. You have a global ultimate that can get you anywhere on the map, and GuyJ kind of just have to hoof it there. So at what point does this Freya decide, you know what, items looking good, levels feeling good, it's time to get into some of these team fights?
She can do it right about now. That demonic grip is a pretty core power spike for at least fighting around these team fights. You need some kind of percent pen as RelentlessOne dashes in and takes half of his health bar there. Will back up, but I don't think we're done just yet, Dimes. We might have to hold that thought.
5 members of the Scorpions grouped up here in the middle lane. Same thing goes for the Xibalba Storm, though, and this is our first look at what these squads can do. Mono 5v5. It's Tegveer and RelentlessOne, the 2 solo laners on the objective, leading the way. Globe with that big AoE teamfight ultimate online. Same thing goes for Hapn in that second life in the Scarab's Blessing. RelentlessOne trying to kick things off, forcing out Globe early. Lightning Storm dropped on the objective, only catches a couple. Migiiiiii dropping low. Migiiiiii able to leap away from Ratmilk, who has now blown all escapability trying to engage. Rebuke is out, only catches 1 though. It's going to be the frontliner Tegveer. Calm for just a moment here as both these squads consider how they want to re-engage. RelentlessOne dashing in. Meanwhile, Shi'igami in the backline. Both squads are low. Scarab's Blessing forced here, but not enough to continue aggressing. Chaos Squad, that's going to be the Scorpions, taking out the Stygian Beacon. Hapn not giving up on RelentlessOne. And a disjointed, discombobulated team fight. Sure, the Scorpions come out on top, but I don't think they're happy with the way that one felt.
They don't seem too pleased, and they're actually going to go for the Pyromancer, and no steal successful for Hapn. Looked pretty close, might have been good in a different reality, but at least here in this one, it's going to be the Scorpions that get the better end of both of those neutral objectives in the middle lane. And Dimes, that's some of the most, I would say, controlled chaos I've ever seen around a beacon fight. I mean, you think about it, we saw a whole bunch of ults go down. I think probably, I'd say 7, 8, 9 ults get used in that engagement. A whole bunch of relics go on cooldown as well. And it still takes a good full minute, maybe a minute and a half from start to finish for that beacon to go down. And in the entirety of the time that those two teams were scrapping, everybody monitoring their own health bars, making sure that they're not falling too low. Nobody dying there so far. It's very impressive to me. Both of these teams with a very realistic grasp of what their resources are available to them. And don't forget, your health bar is a resource in competitive Smite. Solo laners know that perhaps better than anybody else. Tegveer was pretty comfortable there, had 75% HP to work with for seemingly the majority of that team fight. So despite the fact that he was alone at times, wasn't really that worried, as now the Xibalba Storm, they lost the last 2 objectives, and it looks like they're going to try to grab this next one, Dimes. They're going to grab this Oni Fury, or at least go for it.
They started up. Notice Amaterasu on this right-hand side, likely teleporting in. There it goes off, but still a step away here from the Gold Fury. The rest of the Scorpions buying time to allow their solo laner to get into it. Geno takes a ton of damage. Only 2 items online for the support as GuyJ in the backline takes out Ratmilk, who was trying to dive. Luckily, Hapn able to successfully grab the Scarab's Blessing, but who cares when Migiiiiii is here to clean up the damage. Should Shi'igami find at least 1, only 1 for the ADC, as Migiiiiii picks up 1 more for the Scorpions, and that's exactly what the Scorpions were waiting on. They were waiting on Guy, they were waiting on Migiiiiii, they were waiting on Bayroneri. Goes off without a hitch, Oni Fury to the pocket of the Chaos Squad as well, and that was a statement team fight from the Aaru Scorpions.
It was a delightful counter-engage there from them as well. I mean, I thought that with Geno taking half of his health bar and feeling pressured into using the River's Rebuke somewhat defensively, I mean, you could argue that there was an offensive application to it. Things might have been worse for them, but they're going to go for this Fire Giant now, Dimes, and it's already half, but the Storm are on the way in.
Tegveer and no ultimate, though. Fire Giant falling low. Aaru Scorpions successfully take that one down to no one's surprise. Ratmilk crashes down a moment too late. Able to hammer out successfully as the Scorpions are more than happy to snag their prize and get out. Back to base. Big power spikes on the way. I mean, look at this. Migiiiiii and Bayroneri full slotted now. I suppose Migiiiiii rather still has to finish off that starter item, but the mid laner Bayroneri is fully capped out here. RelentlessOne finishing off their build. Same thing goes for GuyJ. Geno finally picking up one more item to fill out that third slot in their build. And speaking of builds, on this left-hand side of the Xibalba Storm, I mean, Shiπigami is topped off. Ratmilk's looking pretty good. I love this breastplate coming out of GIobe. But Hapn's been sitting on this breastplate for quite a while. We just saw Geno essentially pick up their cloak in one fell swoop here, and Hapn's got to get some more online, otherwise more deaths are coming the way of the buck.
Yeah, he's a little bit behind, but his role in this fight is not to necessarily frontline. And I mean that in the sense that he is predominantly peeling for GIobe, and a lot of that can be done from behind him. It's not a traditional composition for the Aaru Scorpions, where you have to stand in front of the mage damage, you have to body block the Hunter autos. A lot of the damage that's going to get to GIobe, going to get to Shiπigami, is going to do so behind, through, over, under Hapn. I mean, there's not a lot that you can stand in front of and prevent them from getting onto him. Especially if they decide they want to use both of the assassin ults on him. You're never peeling off Camazotz, so it's what makes this character so incredibly strong right now. And Bayroneri has proven that he's willing to play the suicide role, if need be, to make sure that GIobe goes down. And that's kind of why you pick Zeus into a composition like this, Dimes, is you understand, I'm not living through this fight, I might as well get my damage off. And that's actually why on the desk I thought AP might not have been a bad choice either, despite the jokes that we had about it previously. I think either one of those two characters kind of fill that role of, I know I'm dying, I'm gonna get my damage off while I die, and hope that it is a big enough impact on the team fight. And around that Gold Fury, you could argue that it was pretty darn close. I mean, he gets the Lightning Storm off, dies as he has the Scarab's Blessing on him, and gets his Chain Lightning combo off onto the enemy as well. It's just a matter of time until the Camazotz was already in the ult, waiting to get back down to him. RelentlessOne was chasing him down with Bayroneri in tandem. It's just the overwhelming pressure and the sheer timing that they had to not only kill the Zeus, but also have all of those cooldowns waiting for him in the wings once he respawns. Very impressive from the Aaru Scorpions so far. Very well disciplined from them. And pretty indicative of the fact that this is a team that has had a lot of success so far in the season.
Man, we're at 24 minutes, and the Scorpions' gold lead has taken flight. I mean, we're over 10K in what feels like a blink of an eye. I'm not even really sure when it happened. All of a sudden, the Xibalba Storm have 0 towers remaining, 3 Phoenixes and 1 Titan to their name. Scorpions sitting pretty with 4. I mean, they have tier 2s online, a tier 1 on the right-hand side. They're feeling happy, healthy, and hungry. It seems like the Xibalba Storm kept this even with the Scorpions so long. Is that a result of the compositions? I mean, is that just like the Scorpions knowing they're going to come on past 20 minutes and just waiting it out, letting the Storm run the map or at least stay even for as long as they did? I mean, what do you chalk that up to?
It's the punch and counterpunch style that we saw for the first 10-15 minutes of the game, where both teams were going for an objective and then lightly contesting. Once the enemy pulled something after the fact, it was the beacon in mid, and then the tower, and then the pyromancer, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it was the Xibalba Storm turn to pull their objective. They chose the Primal Fury, and their punch ended up missing. And the counter punch from the Scorpions was just too strong. If they had happened to win that Primal Fury fight, Dimes were in a pretty even positioning once again, where, you know, the Gold Fury likely wouldn't have impacted the state of the game too much. Might have been a little bit quieter for the foreseeable future, but because the Xibalba Storm on quote-unquote their turn didn't get quote-unquote their objective, it feels like they just lost so much momentum off of that one fight alone. And it has only been a handful of fights so far. I mean, if you take a look at the scoreboard, it has only been 10 total kills. That's both teams combined in 26 minutes of play, which is considerably slower than the average NA game, at least. I know EU likes to play a little bit more methodical, a little bit more calculated, but we're used to arena over here in the NA, and this is definitely not the style of game that we've seen so far. Our Scorpions have played a very cold and calculated game so far, and it looks like they're setting up for one more objective.
Fire Giant's going to go down without a glance here from the Xibalba Storm, who understand it. 26, call it 27 in just a few seconds here, minutes. They don't really have the opportunity to step into the Scorpions. An unfortunate timing here for the Titans to be unleashed for the Scorpions. Maybe hanging on to that Stygian beacon a little bit longer, waiting for those Titans to be unleashed to march down the right-hand side. But you know what? I think the Scorpions are more than happy to trade their Titan for a Fire Giant.
Yeah, I would argue that that's a pretty good trade-off. I mean, unless you're already in an advantageous position where you can knock down the enemy Titan ahead of time, don't really have anything else to turn your attention toward, usually you use the Titan for some kind of trade. Ordinarily, that's not a major objective like the Fire Giant. You might be getting a beacon, a tier 1 tower, maybe a tier 2 pyromancer, that sort of thing, but very clearly, like you said, the Storm knew that one was going down and opted not to contest it. Keep in mind that is the regular Fire Giant, so it doesn't remove as many of those backdoor protections, doesn't give you as big of a buff as it would have if the Aaru Scorpions were to pick it up, say, 3.5, 5 minutes from now. But it is still a major boon for the Scorpions here, and they're gonna need it for these sieges, and that might be the reason that the Xibalba Storm were so willing to give this up, Dimes, because your ADC is a Freya, who is well known and notorious for being horrible at bringing down these structures. A lot of her damage comes from ability damage, which does not translate to Phoenix damage, which makes things difficult for you. And your mid laner is a melee character as well. So it's going to be pretty difficult for them to break into this space, unless they just steal the middle Phoenix when no one is looking, which is exactly what they just did.
I mean, that's the boon of having 2 assassins, right? You walk up, sure, they're melee range, but 3 or 4 melees is going to do it. And you put 2 of them together, and all of a sudden, Phoenix looking real squishy here. Middle lane Bird drops down without a glance there, without any kind of reprisal from the Xibalba Storm. RelentlessOne is not the target that Tegveer and Ratmilk want in this middle lane. It's not like it's the end of the world here for the Storm. As long as Globe is alive, the defense is certainly decent here from the Storm. But, I mean, actives totally on board here for both squads. No, I feel like that's more in the way the Scorpions here. As Bayroneri and RelentlessOne are going to snag this right lane Phoenix for free. 100%. Enough of the Scorpions are hanging around on this left-hand side that the right side goes down for absolute free. And like you said, the Xibalba Storm have to engage while it's split up. RelentlessOne has made their way back to this left-hand side. Hapn falling low so quickly. Tegveer up and Tegveer down, able to escape. Phoenix still online here. Great lightning storm to create space, but in the back line, it's Bayroneri creating havoc here for the Xibalba Storm, allowing the rest of the Scorpions to focus on their own target. Shippigami takes out Bayroneri, who at least grabs 1 in trade. It's going to be Hapn. Migiiiiii takes down Ratmilk in the back line, trying to make something happen. Tegveer able to escape. Migiiiiii dashing out. Shippigami with the auto attacks to snag 2 kills. A nice base defense there from the Xibalba Storm. Sure, you pick up 3 kills, but, I mean, you lose 3 birds.
Yeah, that is... Okay. Worst case scenario is that you lose the Titan, Dimes. Second to worst case scenario is whatever the Storm just did. Because they had all the information required to know that Bayroneri was in right lane, you had RelentlessOne standing where your middle Phoenix used to be, and the other 3 members standing in the left lane. So one would think that if you slow play the map, if you let the Scorpions do whatever they want with that amount of time, it's just going to be Bayroneri walks into the right Phoenix, takes that one, left lane backs up, doesn't let you fight them, and then rotates over once everybody is all grouped up, and they start sieging that last Phoenix. Traditionally, Dimes, in a situation like that, you have to take your best fight. It's not going to be a good fight against a Fire Giant team that's this far ahead. We're talking 15 or at the time probably 10, 11,000 gold ahead of the Xibalba Storm. But they just didn't take whatever their best fight would have been. They needed to jump in there. They needed to try to make something happen so that the map couldn't be split up. But instead, they just let the Scorpions slow play the map. And now Shippigami, in perhaps a bit of a bad spot here. These hoops are going crazy from Geno.
Yeah, Shippigami with the attempted hero play there, but it's going to be quickly 0-0. Oh, Hapn coming in clutch there with the Scarab's Blessing. Luckily, Bayroneri, who was covering the option, immediately takes out the ADC. Oh. And the ADC has baited his entire team into death. Only Globe and Tegveer now to defend the Titan, and it's just not going to happen, Kaizo. This game is over. The Aaru Scorpions, in 31.5 minutes, are going to take out Xibalba Storm clean for game number 1.
It did look clean, and there was back and forth in the early game time. Let's call a spade here. It was about 15 minutes where both of these teams, again, the punch and counter punch style. It was trading objectives, it was trading pressure on different sides of the map, but once we got to the team fight stage, the Aaru Scorpions just looked significantly more cohesive in what they wanted to do. And again, on the initial part of the desk, we talked about how assassins in roles we don't traditionally see them, warriors in roles we don't traditionally see them. There's not a lot of experience that some of these teams likely have with some of these unconventional, unorthodox picks. I doubt that GIobe has a ton of rehearsal against something like a Pele in the middle lane. Maybe they do, just because, again, they did draft a very competent, very reasonable team comp around what the Scorpions had prepared. But the style of play around the objective fights was just so challenging for the Xibalba Storm. It was overwhelming pressure. They constantly got successful penetration to GIobe, and they're going to have to find some kind of answer for this heavy, aggressive style of composition, because the early game, they did hang on, but it wasn't pretty to get to even the parity point at around 10-15 minutes.
And, GIobe, I mean, we saw GIobe just pumped out 30K worth of damage. So it's
Yep.
not like the damage was lacking from the Storm, right? Shiπigami put up the damage, GIobe put up the damage as well. So is this a compositional change that needs to happen, or where do you go back to the drawing board?
I think that it's just a readdressing of how you are approaching the team fights, because very clearly Hapn's idea was, I have to keep GIobe alive. They're very clearly targeting him and diving him. You use the Khepri ult and then revive him, get the second life, take a second stage of the team fight. But with the snowball rolling down a hill, waterfall style of play that the Scorpions had, they never got to that second stage of the team fight. It was just team fight 1.1 or 1.2, where they just continued on forward, waited for GIobe to revive, and then killed him again. I'd much rather see the Storm commit to something like forcing them out of position with a pick style composition of their own, or potentially fighting around the understanding that GIobe is going to die. That's why he picked Zeus, and maybe play something that can punish the dive a little bit harder, as opposed to trying to prevent it to begin with.
A clean late game there from the Aaru Scorpions. Knocked down the Xibalba Storm in game number 1, but we have a game 2 coming your way. Stick around. You're not going to want to miss it. Howdy, folks, and welcome back into the Smite Challenger Circuit, week number 3. We're in North America. I'm Dimes. That's GuyJ, and we just witnessed a Xibalba Storm Game 1 loss to the Aaru Scorpions. Break it down, GuyJ.
It was a very back and forth game for the beginning and maybe the middle stages, but once we got into the team fight stage, despite the fact that Shiπigami was very early and aggressive with the Chernobog rotations, it felt like it was just overwhelming amounts of pressure from the Aaru Scorpions. The Storm drafted a composition that was focused around keeping GIobe alive for as long as possible to put out as much damage as possible, but it was like rolling a boulder up a hill, Dimes. I mean, it felt like an insurmountable task with all of the dive that they had available. Between the Camazotz ult, the Amaterasu ult, and the Pele ult, it was just too much to keep GIobe active for more than even a couple of seconds of those team fights. And it's not to say he didn't get the damage off, but very clearly it was insufficient for the task that was presented to him, and they're gonna have to make some changes here. I don't think that Bayroneri on the Pele is necessarily the first thing that I think of, but it's not the last thing I think of either.
Well, let's let the players talk to us about picks and bans for game number 2 here. It seemed like it was both sure, there were some composition issues, right? There were some execution issues, but it also seemed like the Scorpions, it seemed like you can plug and play a lot with this team, where you can switch in and out. Sure, you can put Bayroneri on the Pele. You can also put him on the Raijin. You can also put him on the Thoth. You get what I'm saying. It seems like there might be some skill involved here as well in terms of execution on the field. I mean, past 25 minutes, I'm not sure if compositions mattered. I didn't see a world where the Storm was ever going to fight back into this corpse.
Not from that kind of lead. I mean, once you get to about the 10,000 gold mark, that's typically where we say that a game is 99% likely to go in one team's favor versus the other. Obviously, sure, map state matters, who has Fire Giant, if it's up, Phoenixes, that kind of thing, also very relevant in that conversation. But I think that very much the gold got to the point where they just couldn't fight back into it. There were a lot of things that went wrong getting to that point, but definitely some changes that need to be made here in the picks and bans phase as well, Dimes. And the first one that they make, actually, is they take away the Chernobog, so Shiπigami won't be piloting that one. And instead, they elect to steal away the Yemoja with the #1 overall pick from Geno and give that one over to Hapn. Now, I know that Hapn has a very diverse god pool, a lot of very backline-centered characters in his arsenal, things like the Khepri, the Ganesha, Yemoja also obviously falling into that category, but I don't know. As they lock in the Pele, as I hear, the sound cues in my ears, it's just, I hear all of the things that GIobe and Shiπigami are going to be dealing with the Pele and the Thor locked in at the same time, and it just already sounds scary for the Storm.
Double Assassins serve the Scorpions well in game number 1, and they go right back to it. And the Storm, curiously here, instead of electing to pick up that Camazotz that the Scorpions have not picked into, grab the Heimdallr second. Sure, we saw someone like Cyclone Splin play it to great effect, and this Ratatoskr is going to be next as well. I mean, there are so many impactful middle lane picks, right? Solo lane picks. The Amaterasu is up. The Achilles that was banned out is up. Cyrus, I mean, Cthulhu, I could go on and on, as Ganesha is going to be locked in here for the Scorpions, but it's going to be the Heimdallr Rat. Talk me through maybe some of the Storm's thought process here.
It's another very safe dual lane for them to work with. I think of Chernobog as a style of ADC where you think of the ultimate ability, right? The Night Terror, where you rotate across the map and then you're already in the enemy backline, but actually very difficult to dive as well due to those iframes when he hides inside of a wall. Very difficult to lock this guy down. Heimdallr kind of fits that same bill where he has a decent amount of mobility, actually very deceptive amount of mobility for this character with the Bifrost, with the Through the Realms dash. You can get out of dodge pretty quickly with this guy, not to mention, obviously, the passive giving you additional vision, some knowledge to really combat some of the rotations that might be coming your way. And the Yemoja, when paired alongside the Heimdallr, has very good lane pressure. What I mean by that is specifically the brand of pressure that allows you to shove the wave into the enemy tower, get to the shield buff first, potentially look to invade a purple buff or a back camp somewhere along the way. They don't fight better than, I would say, 60 to 70% of lanes, but when it comes to just keeping yourself safe, finding a little fort and setting up there and making as much space as possible for your backline. This is a dual lane composition that does that incredibly well.
This is a fascinating couple pickups here. It's going to be Kuang taken by the Storm, and we can talk about, I mean, where everybody is going here, as Rama and Ganesha are going to be strong here on the Scorpions. I mean, Hades mid, Rat solo, Kuang jungle is kind of initially where my gut, you're kind of chewing on it as Cerb is going to be hovered here and likely locked in. I mean, talk me through this Storm draft.
So much flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, you could put Hades mid or solo. You could put Rat mid or solo. Kuang can probably, I mean, does Kuang flex in a mid, or is that mostly a jungle solo situation?
Not so much with the Kuang mid. I mean, if you can make Pele mid work, I'm sure you could probably also... Actually, no. I'm going to take a hard stance here, Dimes. You cannot put Kuang in the mid lane, because the reason that these characters function so well in the mid lane, like the Pele, is they have high pressure and they fight you very well at all stages of the game. And Kuang just outright does not fit that bill. So I would reasonably say that we've got Hades in mid lane, and then Kuang or Ratatoskr solo jungle. I think that probably Rat jungle is the better look, but honestly, either one probably works.
Well, Kaizo, we've got a couple of bets on the table here. I think it's time to head into game number 2 and see how the Xibalba Storm shake out, see if they prove us right or wrong.
I'm so
Tegveer,
smart, man.
Taking the Kuang in a solo. Ratmilk wants that flexibility, the rotations in the jungle. Globe's going to have insane pressure and clear here in the middle lane. No surprise, Bayroneri reprising their role as this Pele in the middle lane. And talk me through this switch up for Migiiiiii here. I mean, we're going to be talking about Storm's comp like all game long. So while we have a moment, let's talk Scorpions. Migiiiiii played the Camazotz. Elects here to grab the Thor second. Camazotz was still on the table, right? The Scorpions had that option. They decide to go to this Thor. What is it about game 1, or what is it about Thor, that when Migiiiiii sees Camazotz available, instead picks up the Norse son of Odin?
Man, it's crazy that you didn't give me the chance to gas myself up for getting these predictions right. But whatever, we can talk about the Thor. It's fine. I mean, Migiiiiii on this Thor is
all game long, dog.
No, I don't want to talk about it anymore, Times. I was very excited. I was very proud of myself, and you didn't give me the chance. So now I don't want to talk about it at all. So we'll just move on. This Thor in the jungle, again, gives you so much lockdown when paired with something that has damage but doesn't have any crowd control of their own. And I think Cerb doesn't exactly fit that bill to the same tune that a Nike would, where you don't have the same lack of hard crowd control, but it's reasonably unreliable. Cerberus stun only functions at particular ranges, and you have to use another ability to set that one up. It's really the protection shred that you're getting out of this pick when you pair it alongside something like this Thor in the jungle. It gives you very good damage on these backliners, excuse me, basically gives them an additional penetration item or two, which is insane to say out loud, that you're giving them 2 full items worth of value just for using one singular ability. And once again, it's this Aaru Scorpions draft that has so much overwhelming dive pressure when you pair the Shred from RelentlessOne alongside double assassin damage coming out of Migiiiiii and Bayroneri. It's once again going to be on Shippigami, on Globe, and on Hapn to keep themselves alive through the inevitable onslaught of this Chaos Team draft.
Something else I want to point out here. So we have another assassin mid lane mage matchup, right? But I mean, this Hades is going to function kind of similar to the Zeus, but differently. I mean, similar in that you have a large damage dealing AoE ability that's just going to 100 to 0 targets if they get caught in it. Sure. The big mix up here, though, as a Hades, you're stuck in it, right? So you can't just drop the Lightning Storm and back off. Is Bayroneri going to be able to overcome the damage output from Globe, who's just sitting there, as RelentlessOne's going to get knocked down here by Ratmilk and Tegveer? Thor's made the rotation, the hero of the day. What a blink out there from the solo laner, from the Storm, but it's enough at least to keep first blood on the table for another minute or so.
It does mean that both of these teams are very low as they head back toward their own buffs. Looks like no invades will come out, just everybody licking their own wounds. But to go back to this middle lane matchup, it's a different playstyle entirely, where game number 1 you had Globe on a pick that understands I'm going to die, I'm getting my damage off, I'm waiting for them to come to me and punishing them for using the abilities on top of me. GIobe on this Hades is going to function pretty much in the opposite way at times. He's going to be in their backline, or whatever you can call a backline for what the Aaru Scorpions have drafted, and trying to prevent them from getting on the front foot. It's kind of the same way that you deal with the Cthulhu, or you don't deal with the Cthulhu if you're the Camelot Kings, where you have to get him dead early before he can use the Descent into Madness and get maximum value out of those cooldowns. If you can jump on these assassins, take out a quarter, a third, a half of their health bar before they try to go in, then it's a much lower time to kill on these picks. You get much more value out of these backline style supports where you don't have to contend with the entirety of the health bar. You can only have to go through maybe half of it in order to keep your carry alive and ensure that you're going to be safe. It's a very different style of play, functions very well around the mid camps as well, where Bayroneri basically has to be melee range in order to secure those. And GIobe, he really likes it when you group things up at melee range.
You know, you pointed out there what kind of backline the Scorpions have. It's kind of just wrong. It's kind of just GuyJ,
and only
right?
sometimes.
Yeah, right. So sometimes you're going to be in the backline, and sometimes you're going to be combat rolling in and then go up to the air for the immunity. But you're so right. I mean, Ratmilk, Tegveer, and to some extent GIobe are all looking to sort of pick off a backliner. You know, in Tegveer's case, look for that execute. Who you going on? Right? If you're the Scorpions, you're already diving Shiπigami. But I mean, the problem kind of cuts both ways. Like, if you're a Scorpion, if you're, you know, Migiiiiii or Bayroneri, who are you diving on? Shiπigami? All right, who's next? Ratmilk and Tegveer are in the air, and GIobe is ulting in the backline. Speaking of ulting, Migiiiiii going up in the air. Tegveer looking to be the target to smash down. Successful onto the Kuang, who's locked in and immediately throws the Thor into the air, but buys enough time for the RelentlessOne to snake the kill out from under Thor's feet. And it's going to be a 1-0 for the Scorpions as Tegveer falls to the rotation from the jungle.
Xibalba Storm, on the other hand, are going to be invading this green buff. Looks like they'll get away scot-free off that invade. And that is kind of what this solo lane matchup feels like, Dimes, where Kuang struggles to clear the wave early on, relies very heavily on Death's Toll sustain to kind of get him through. Hang on, GIobe is dying!
And Geno is dead, to put a period on it, as GIobe picks up a kill against the Ganesh, who I pray that we know how he got there. Ultimate's down, so you can only assume the Dharmic Pillars got dropped defensively there. Can't imagine they were used offensively. Looking at, I mean, it wasn't even like, it's even weird. Like Geno was hanging around the speed buff, or even like the green buff, really. It was kind of in that neutral zone, and that's one dead elephant.
And we wanted to know, Dimes, or at least you asked, what is the target if you're the Xibalba Storm? When you have all of these characters that you don't have a backline to target necessarily, because GuyJ can self-banish, go up into the sky, Bayroneri going to be diving Migiiiiii in the air or diving RelentlessOne, much the same. It kind of leaves Geno, actually, on an island where you would traditionally have a couple of people back there to keep you safe, to contend with some of the damage and CC coming your way. You don't have that, and instead you have Migiiiiii in the air.
Oh, Migiiiiii crashing down onto Shiπigami, blows the beads. What a wall. These walls have been fantastic. Just not even 7 minutes in here from Migiiiiii. Shiπigami able to use the ultimate to dash away. A fruitful rotation there from the jungle. You trade ult for ult, but you create tons of space. Looks like the shield buff is also going to head the way here of the Scorpions. And so far, I mean, I'm loving Migiiiiii on this Thor. The rotation, I mean, making great use of that semi-global ultimate, kind of not waiting as long to get online as this Camazotz, right? You kind of saw the Camazotz wait until 20 minutes, then really started going to work. Really seeing Migiiiiii put this Anvil of Dawn to use.
And across the way for the Xibalba Storm, I think that this is a much more comfortable position for them to be in. Because don't forget, at this stage of the game, it was already GIobe pinned under his tower, forced to take some of those melee creeps in the tower, denying some of that gold, not really comfortable to rotate to the side lanes and get engaged. But instead, he's pretty comfortable on the Hades.
GuyJ forced back here, Ratmilk dashing in, good River's Rebuke there, but unfortunately, catches GuyJ under the tower, dashing in his Ratmilk, who doesn't want to give up on this aggression. Dharmic Pillar saves the life of Guy for a moment. At the very least, Ratmilk able to escape because GIobe critically look in the middle lane, keeping Migiiiiii from rotating. A crucial play there from the mid laner. Stops any reprisal on the left-hand side. GIobe doesn't look like he was able to steal away that green buff as well.
Doesn't matter.
Great Great play there from the mid laner. The kill happened on the left-hand side, but the distraction went down in mid.
An excellent catch as well, because you're absolutely right. That is the difference between... Tegveer might be in very real danger, so keep an eye on that, but that is the very big difference between these two compositions for the Xibalba Storm, where you had a backline mid laner first game, now you got a frontline one, and now you got Migiiiiii caught out in his beads forest.
No Scarab's Blessing online here for Geno. Not this game. Just enough mana to hammer out Guy up in the air. One shot's not going to make it. Second shot onto Shiπigami. Third shot doesn't find any kind of pay dirt there. Guy able to leap away.
Good
Lockdown
ball.
is good, but the wall
Wait,
in
behind?
return. Oh, the flurry of acorns from Ratmilk is just enough to take Rom out. Shiπigami's low, and here comes Bayroneri ripping through the ADC, using the bead, slamming forward as well, taking out the jungler there. Knock up onto Hapn. Here's the three-piece. Bayroneri takes out Hapn for the third. Might just get 4-2 GIobe. No ultimate GIobe. No cooldowns. Geno backing up the mid laner. And a killer, literally, rotation from Bayroneri, who wipes out the duo lane plus a little extra of the Xibalba Storm.
Bayroneri just backed out the blick on him in that fight. That was insane. Comes up behind three people who their entire attention was devoted to chasing out those kills on the north end of the map and diving toward that tower in the left lane. Had, I wouldn't say no idea, they do have the ward coverage. You can see that one ward that was likely crossed by Bayroneri on his way over. But at that point, once you get to that position, once Bayroneri is already behind you, there is no escaping. You are not getting out of that engagement without the Pele damage dumped into your face. And this guy looks so incredibly good, Dimes, on this Pele. We've seen a bunch of different mid laners pilot this pick, and I think Bayroneri is in my conversation for one of the better at it. And it kind of makes sense with the characters that we've seen him play. It's no coincidence that Morrigan gets banned away from this guy a lot. He loves those high burst assassin style or just straight up assassin picks in the mid lane.
Kind of unfortunate. GIobe, for very, very little, has to blow the purification beads there to escape the Dharmic Pillar slow under tower. Strange dive, I'm going to be honest, from the mid lane there. It's on to Geno, who sure only has the Thebes online, but, you know, level 9 Guardian, stacked up Thebes, GIobe, immediately going into a defensive item, right? You grab the Bancrofts, grab the breastplate. It's not like you're going to be 100 to 0ing. Geno, a little bit suspect there. You know, we're 11 minutes in. It's pretty even. Scorpions, sure, they have a bit of a lead here. But it's time to start chit-chatting, Kaizo, about objectives, about secure, about burn. Talk me through both of these teams' compositions. Actually, you know what? Hold on 1 second here. Thor's in the air, and Thor has landed what happened with a beautiful, and I mean spot-on Riptide to barely escape danger within a breath there as Ratmilk slams down. Migiiiiii forced out of the fight. River's Rebuke is going to catch GIobe, who immediately goes to the ult for CC immunity. Bayroneri on the back end here. Bayroneri walking out of danger. Same thing goes for Hapn and GIobe. And it's a big old goose egg for both these squads, who have burned a lot to get nothing in return. But, I mean, the Scorpions, not even really, right? Migiiiiii crashes down. Bayroneri saves ult. Geno saves ult. RelentlessOne and Guy didn't make the rotations. So Xibalba Storm come up with very little for a lot expended.
Yeah, the investment there didn't really see a whole lot of return, and I think some of that is probably due to the fact that we saw those solo laners rotating in, and Xibalba Storm not super comfortable with the stage of their solo laner versus the enemy. It was an item power spike in favor of the Aaru Scorpions solo laner, in addition to very critically having that second relic available. Just generally, hang on, ult there forces both beads, and Shiπigami in a 1v2 situation will not be able to bring down Migiiiiii. GuyJ gets credit for the kill. It looks like the Xibalba Storm trying to flush people out, very aware Dimes of the fact that could be a Gold Fury pull if they aren't careful. But it's a very interesting situation for the Storm, where their solo laner is just outright in a weaker position than the Aaru Scorpion solo laner. They don't have the item spikes available. Tegveer needs to be able to do very relevant damage in order to threaten these backliners. And considering the fact that you have to get the protections very early on, you can't just go straight into things like the Pythagorean's piece or a Divine Ruin or anything like that on this Kuang. It's going to be a little bit longer until Tegveer really gets to play in these fights to the same extent that RelentlessOne does. So any fight that the solo laners are here for, like RelentlessOne is now, is going to go to the Aaru Scorpions.
What a rotation here from RelentlessOne, cutting off the escape path for GIobe, who goes into the ultimate to try to put out some damage, is able to do so, but ultimately falls for it as 5 members of the Aaru Scorpions here group up around this Gold Fury. Darming pillars down, catching out Shippigami, who bifrosts away successfully. It's happened to Ratmilk looking on here as the Scorpions elect to completely leave the Gold Fury? Question mark? It's a 4v5. Scorpions have the power play, but decide not to do anything with it. I mean, sure, Bayroneri, no mana. Geno low as well. Ultimate's very low here for the Scorpions. River's Rebuke comes out. I understand the back off from the Scorpions, but maybe a misclick there from Hapn.
Maybe a misclick, maybe thought that something was there that wasn't, but whatever the case is, it is a uncomfortable situation now for the Storm with the Scorpions barreling their way down. It doesn't look like they're going to be going for the Gold Fury anytime soon, but likely to send RelentlessOne over one more time before that ultimate comes back up. As you can see, production just showed us another 80 to 85 seconds before Hapn gets that cooldown back available. Little bit shorter because he has the breastplate in the second slot, which a lot of different characters and a lot of different roles are beginning to slot into the build. That breastplate of determination is very, very good right now. And people are, I mean, you have Scream in the previous set before this one in the King set was just saying this item is straight up OP. And there's a lot of people that hold that belief and will slot it into just about any build that you can find it. And you can see already 2 picked up for the Xibalba Storm, 1 for the Aaru Scorpions. And it's just a lot of sustain, some good movement speed when either you're in danger or trying to chase down a low health target, perhaps. Some pretty relevant stats right when you need them, in the same sort of vein as the way Spirit Robe functions. And that could be the reason that we're going to see, what, 4, maybe 5 breastplates so far this game. It's a hybrid style of meta, at least for the time being, guys.
We got 4 on the map, 4 breastplates, that is. And minus 2 major objectives. 1 major objective, I should say, is Gold Fury still on the map there. Pyromancer heading the way of the Scorpions, who elongate their lead to call it 5,000 here at 15 minutes. Quite a significant amount. As Bayroneri going to be under tower there. Hades' ultimate gets a trade for Bayroneri's ultimate. A little bit of CC immunity there for the mid laner out of the Scorpions. And the Fury is certainly on the minds of both these squads. I mean, Scorpions have a bit of a gold lead, but XP tight. I mean, not even really. I mean, I was looking at least 14 to 14 in the dual lane for the ADCs, but 3-level lead, 2-level lead, 2-level lead, 2-level lead. Scorpions are flat out winning this map. Who are you looking to in the Xibalba Storm to make any kind of progress, forward strides to keep this Order squad in the game?
It's got to be Shippigami, but if he's going to do anything around this Gold Fury, he's got to get on the way sooner rather than later. It looks like the Scorpions are just going to be grabbing this one. Excuse me, I'm dying out here, Dimes. Just going to be grabbing this one in short order. And I do think that it has to be Shippigami in this backline for the Xibalba Storm that need to make something happen. GIobe has been doing his job for what seems like the entirety of this game so far. He's been preventing the aggression from the Aaru Scorpions and playing that initiator-style role in the mid lane, and also kind of serving as a deterrent also. We've seen a couple of different times him cutting off some of the rotations that would have been on the way to the dual lane or even towards some of these major objectives. Already you've got the seeds are planted for how the Xibalba Storm need to be playing these engagements. And it's going to be on Hapn, it's going to be on Shippigami to execute in a high-pressure situation. Because don't forget, the style of composition, despite the fact we haven't seen a whole lot of team fighting so far this game, is such that Hapn's going to be under pressure, Shippigami's going to be under pressure. That is just how the Aaru Scorpions draft functions. They picked 4 characters that want to get in very aggressively, push their buttons on whatever's in front of them, and sometimes it's going to be Hapn, and sometimes he's just going to get caught out like this. Double ults from the Assassins will potentially bring him down, Dimes, but now the collapse is coming in from the Storm.
And Bayroneri may have gone a little bit too deep there, able to use beads and escape the Hades ultimate successfully. Hapn, I mean, shockingly able to escape an all-out dive there from the Scorpions. Has to use every Riptide in the kit along with that sprint, but it is at least able to escape with their life. Problem is, if you're a Scorpions fan, that is, there's nothing to capitalize on, right? Like,
hang on.
It's not really a tower to push here, as there's a 1v1 in this left-hand lane. Off the mark with the ultimate as Shippigami forces the Aegis. Oh my god, those auto attacks are doing work. Guy up in the air, buying time. Is Migiiiiii gonna be able to get here? Shi'igami connects with the final auto attack, and Migiiiiii has to walk away, make that hammer away. Ratmilk slamming down on Migiiiiii. Aegis goes out as well, but Ratmilk putting the finishing touches on Migiiiiii. And now the Xibalba Storm cooking with gasoline now. It's 2 go down for the Scorpions. A buff goes down as well. Make this maybe even a tier 2 tower, and the Xibalba Storm heating up.
They're grouping up for whatever is available, and Pyro's not up for grabs, neither is the Gold Fury. Instead, it's going to be this tier 2. They've got Bayroneri underneath them, and it sounds like the alarm bells are going off, and it might be once again Hapn under threat with RelentlessOne on the teleport, but we'll go ahead and get on out of dodge. And that's the confidence you want from your ADC. He is, again, going to be under incredible pressure. But Shi'igami looks calm, cool, and collected. Just walking in confidently, taking the 1v1 against GuyJ, and finding a way out of that engagement despite the fact that Migiiiiii was on the way over and it could have been his end if he stuck around any longer. It's the first real uptick in confidence and morale and arguably gold that we've seen from the Xibalba Storm in quite some time so far at times. The Aaru Scorpions will collect that Pyromancer, but it shows very clearly that the Storm are still not counting themselves out of this one just yet. It's a pretty reasonable gold lead here. 20 minutes in, 5k gold is nothing to shake a stick at, but the Xibalba Storm are still taking their fights where they can. And very specifically, fighting around this Heimdallr, who now with the level lead is starting to play even more aggressively around this Primal Fury, which is due to spawn in just about 15 seconds or so.
So here's my concern, Kaizo. That fight, and anything the Xibalba Storm subsequently got off of it, started because Shi'igami 1v1 Guy in 1.
Yep.
Right? Migiiiiii makes the rotation, Ratmilk follows up, but it all begins with a 1v1. It's 20 minutes. That's not going to happen again. Like, flat out, Guy and Shi'igami are not going to, at the very least, Guy's not going to put himself in that situation again.
Sure.
So what else does the Storm have to build off of? That's my concern, is that only happens because Shi'igami wins a 1v1 and Migiiiiii goes too deep. It's simply not going to happen again here at 20 minutes. We're going to start fighting over Primal Furies. We're going to start fighting over Fire Giants. We're going to be put in situations. I say they are going to be put in situations where it's 5v5. And so far, 20 minutes into game number 2, and heck, 30 minutes, 15 minutes of game number 1, the Scorpions have shown time and time again that when it's 5v5, they're going to come out on top.
That is how game 1 played out, but honestly, we haven't even seen enough of the team fights here in game 2 to know how they're going to be playing out. We haven't seen a full engagement where all 5 members for both teams are grouped up. It's been a lot of, well, this. I mean, the Xibalba Storm aren't even contesting the objectives that the Aaru Scorpions are doing. And you can make the argument that, you know, Primal Fury doesn't matter a whole lot. A lot of teams don't really notice the difference in the additional power that you get, the damage you get to these objectives. It's kind of a whatever objective in certain situations, but I would argue that it's just very indicative of the fact that the Xibalba Storm are biding their time. Don't forget that, again, this Kuang needs a lot of items to feel like a real character. RelentlessOne can walk into a team fight in 10 seconds and feel like a real soul laner. He can frontline, he can apply crowd control, he can do the damage, and he can probably get on out of there because he's tanky enough. Something like an Kuang solo that needs to build damage and also tankiness needs so many more items to get impactful. You can see he's got that Telkine's ring online right now, going for what could be a demonic grip depending on who he's targeting, could also be that Cyclopean ring. Whatever he's going there, he needs that one online before he can really start to make a difference in these fights. If we can actually take a look at player damage, I wouldn't anticipate that Tegveer has gotten pretty much any of it. And you can see he's all the way down there, 6,000 gold by the dual lane that hasn't really been doing a whole lot of anything. Rom hasn't been involved in much of these fights. It's been both of these supports also around that same mark. It's going to be quite some time before you can actually get Tegveer to a comfortable position. And they're just trying to fight their way to that eventual marker.
Unfortunate there for Migiiiiii, who has to use the purification beats in the face of a Riptide. On the left-hand side, though, GuyJ up in the air. I said there wasn't going to be any more 1v1s, but I was just flat out wrong. Shi'igami and Guy boxing in this left-hand lane, joined now by Migiiiiii. Shi'igami gets out of there. Ratmilk dropping low. Ratmilk put in the ground. by Migiiiiii. That is a fatal flaw here for the Xibalba Storm, who's next on the chopping block. It's going to be GIobe, who doesn't die, who actually survives and kills Bayroneri. Takes out the enemy mid laner there. RelentlessOne does put the finishing touches on GIobe. GuyJ's in the backline, capturing the Stygian beacon in the meantime. And sure, Tegveer's made the rotation, but a little too late there, buddy, as 2 go down for the Xibalba Storm. At the very least, GIobe is going to answer with a kill onto Bayroneri. Now the Storm having to defend this tier 2 tower, do so unsuccessfully. And the Scorpions back off with their eyes on the Pyromancer.
And GIobe at least trades his life out for Bayroneri. Ultimate's expended by both characters, and that's the reason both of them end up going down. But the situation in left was just unfortunate, where we saw the 1v1 again happening between Shipiigami and GuyJ, and Ratmilk rotated over, wanted to help, saw that the cavalry was coming from the Aaru Scorpions, and didn't want to leave his boy alone, but unfortunately gets caught in the pincer maneuver as everybody collapsing onto him. Now the collapse might be on Hapn again!
Fascinating step up here from Hapn and Tegveer. I mean, what is a tanky Kuang and an under-leveled... This is a genuine question, Kaizo. What is a tanky Tegveer and an under-leveled Yemoja gonna do against that Pyromancer take? Like, it's a Pyromancer. We're at 24, approaching 25 minutes. Is there a world where that's worth that contest?
No. I mean, they were hoping that maybe a lack of vision would see a couple of tanks walking their way and assume that there was somebody behind them, but those 2 characters alone, it is a very low percentage shot there. And you could argue 7,000 gold down, a couple of level disparities in several roles, though that becoming less and less relevant as characters begin to tick over to that level 20 mark. You might be willing to take some of those risks, but I don't know, man. It was high risk, very low reward, even if they got that Pyromancer. And instead, they might have opened up this opportunity for the Scorpions to grab the Fire Giant. In fact, there is no opportunity, Dimes. It's just gone. I mean, there is no contest once again from the Xibalba Storm. And it's beginning to get a little perplexing to me, because you can't continue to give up everything on the map. At some point, if you're the Xibalba Storm, you have to put your foot down and say, all right, we've let you have Gold Fury, Pyromancer, Beacon again, Fire Giant, another Beacon, and another Pyromancer. But this time, Dimes, on this tier 2 tower, or this Phoenix, we're putting our foot down and we're going to defend this with our lives. And the Xibalba Storm don't seem to know where that's at. Or at least if they do know where that mark is going to be, it doesn't seem to be on the horizon anytime soon. You're running out of things to give up if you're a Xibalba Storm player or a fan of theirs, perhaps. I mean, it's towers in left and then just the Phoenixes remaining for the Xibalba Storm. And they've got to make a stand somewhere. And the thing about the Scorpions draft this time, Dimes, is they don't have the same issues on Siege that they had in game number 1. You had a melee ranged character in the mid lane, you had a Freya as your ADC, very difficult conceptually to take these Phoenixes away. You've got a real full red-blooded American ADC in GuyJ on this ROM, and there is going to be no difficulty in this guy just smacking these Phoenixes down if you give him enough space. It's going to be hard for the Xibalba Storm, but again, they have to find whatever they perceive to be their best fight and take it sooner rather than later.
You know, you say Scorps had a conceptually difficult objective early Phoenix Siege team. Didn't seem to be all that hard with Bayroneri walking up and smacking the mid Phoenix and smacking the right Phoenix, and then all of a sudden the Storm had 1 bird remaining, and then they lost that one too. Looks to be the case maybe in this one as well.
And that actually, Dimes, that tells me that this isn't a one-game kind of issue that the Storm are having. This seems to be a persistent issue, at least throughout this set, where they're giving up too much without staking their claim, without putting their foot down, so to speak. Because you're totally right. Game number 1, they did allow both Migiiiiii and Bayroneri to walk into the middle bird, and you can argue that was gone regardless, because they didn't just smack it down. I mean, they used 2 runic bombs, which obviously a lot of true damage, very difficult to defend against that. But they didn't take the fight after that. They didn't take the fight when Bayroneri wasn't right. It's just a lot of indecision, it seems like, from the Xibalba Storm. I want to see in the next 1 minute or so, minute and a half, if they even have that much time, if the Aaru Scorpions allow them that much time to make some kind of decisive play during that lapse of time. Because again, if you let the Aaru Scorpions march in, they will, and they'll take everything.
Xibalba Storm having to defend their castle right here, protect their fortress against the sieging Aaru Scorpions. Scorps are going to split it up 2 and 3, and already that middle lane bird dropping under half HP. Got another runic bomb on the way here for Bayroneri as well. That, oh man, unfortunate River's Rebuke there catches absolutely nada. What a huge teamfight ultimate. Going to be on cooldown for the next little while as this bird on the left-hand side has just a tick of HP left to its name. Up goes Ratmilk, and down comes Ratmilk. The Ratatoskr elects to not go in at all. Mid lane Phoenix goes down. Left lane Phoenix is very short to follow. Xibalba Storm letting the barriers down. I mean, the drawbridge has been dropped here as GIobe is going to fall to Bayroneri. Scorpions charging forward. Hapn next here in the eyes of the Scorpions, going down to Bayroneri, who picks up the double. Call it 5-1-1 here for the middle laner, who has piloted this Pele brilliantly in games 1 and 2 now. It's 29 minutes here. The Aaru Scorpions look to work into the base of the Xibalba Storm. Playing this one patiently, though. They played all game 1 and game 2 here patiently. As Tegveer knows this is the time to defend, gets at least one execution. Could find another one here. Ratmilk, 1 HP. GuyJ isn't able to find the final Astral Barrage shot on it, though. Spin to win. Migiiiiii taking out Shiπigami, taking him low at the very least, as Tegveer is going to fall to the auto attacks of GuyJ. And this is a moment where Shiπigami has to come up big, able to find at least Migiiiiii. Here comes Ratatoskr. Ratmilk deciding, is this going to be worth it or not? Hovering, waiting, slamming down, perfectly timed dash from GuyJ, who immediately turns it on around a Ratmilk. But at the very minimum, Kaizo, the Xibalba Storm, they lose 2 birds. They keep their Titan.
They do keep the Titan alive, Dimes, and I think that is the closest thing that we've seen from the Storm to a decisive engagement. There was no hesitation there for whether or not they were going in. It's just unfortunate the timing for when they decided to go in, because you already lost the middle bird. You had lost, I would argue, 98 to 99% of the health on the left bird before they even attempt to step in and try to contend with the Aaru Scorpions push. And they have a very all-in style of composition for the Storm. They don't get the luxury of just sitting back. They don't have a Thoth, for example, that's going to sit at range, poke them down, whittle them down over time, and then once they're low enough, go in. You've got an Kuang as your solo laner, which needs to find and execute to feel relevant in these engagements. Has not done that yet, by the way. And you have a Hades as your mid laner, which is a almost entirely melee range character. So you don't get the luxury of just sitting back and waiting for them to come to you. You have to be the ones to initiate. You have to jump in. You have to pick your moment and capitalize on it. And we saw at least some of that there from the Xibalba Storm. It looks like they're going to go for it again here. This is the Hail Mary play that I'm looking for.
GIobe, it's happened. And it is aggression here from the Xibalba Storm. This is a last-ditch effort. Guy able to successfully roll out of the Hades ultimate. RelentlessOne on the back foot now. And Ratmilk takes out GuyJ with a beautiful jungler blade, but it could be turned right back around as Thor finds a double stun on the back end here. GIobe at half HP, able to dash away successfully. A beautiful Yemoja ultimate to cut off the Scorpions. Is it going to work to save GIobe's life, though, who falls to the onslaught? A 1-for-1 so far with the Xibalba Storm able to walk away. Ratmilk's got to defend the Titan here, who's already at 3/4 HP. The Scorpions on the Fire Giant. 31 minutes. This one's going to be an enhanced. Oh, Shiπigami just between a rock and a hard place. Does find one, though. I mean, a miracle kill there for Shiπigami as Migiiiiii falls to the auto attacks from the Heimdallr. Hapn and Tegveer, who's remained mostly quiet this game. 1, 2, and 2. A single execute. Mostly confined to the solo lane. And Tegveer's got to come up big here 30 minutes in.
Aaru Scorpions marching their way down this right-hand side. Left side bird due to spawn, and beads forced off of Tegveer. Hapn gets pulled back in, but the damage isn't there yet.
Oh, that's a late-game Pele ripping through the support. Tegveer falling low as well. Stunned here by RelentlessOne. And meanwhile, on this right-hand side, it's one member versus the world. It's just Ratmilk, who's able to walk away by the skin of that rat's teeth. Right lane, Phoenix falls. Middle lane, Phoenix online. Same thing goes for the right-hand lane. But GIobe can't be everywhere at once. That left-hand Phoenix is going to fall to fire minions. Bayroneri takes out Tegveer. Ratmilk slamming down, taking out Bayroneri. Does Ratmilk have enough to find another? The answer is yes. Geno falls. A dash away here from RelentlessOne. but Ratmilk would be running right into death with GuyJ hovering around the corner. A good call there from the jungler, taking out 2, but really, honestly, Kaizo, just buying time for Xibalba Storm.
And they're going to need a lot of it, Dimes, with now that all 3 of these Phoenixes are down, Enhanced Fire Giant is on the menu, and it doesn't look as though the Xibalba Storm are going to have the opportunity to grab that one for their own. They still got quite a while before Tegveer comes back up, and this is the most statistically challenging position you can be put in a game of Smite. You have all 3 of your Phoenixes down, your Titan is already somewhat low, and all of these fire waves are pushing down. The enemy team is grouped up around this Enhanced Fire Giant. It doesn't get harder than this. The task is nearly insurmountable for the Storm, and their only option is forward here. If they wait for all of these waves to crash down, if they wait for the enemy team to do the Enhanced Fire Giant, the Aaru Scorpions will swoop it up, walk it down slow and methodical like we've seen them do for 34 minutes of this game and about 30 minutes in the previous game, and just outright end this game. The only option that the Xibalba Storm have here is to force the Scorpions to fight and take a decisive winning engagement.
Oh, Globe is picked off at the beginning of this fight. A wall, and the combination of the Scorpions team takes out the middle laner. Hapn is the next target. Hapn is going to fall here to the Scorpions. Disaster striking here for the Storm. Lightning coming down on the Order squad. Bayroneri takes out Tegveer. A triple for GuyJ as Ratmilk falls into the grayscale. A deicide to come here for the Scorpions. Find one for Migiiiiii. Kaizo, you said the Xibalba Storm had to draw a line in the sand. Well, how about the Scorpions kicking over their sandcastle? The Scorpions going to take this set 2-0.
And the game 2 was much more decisive than game number 1. I think that the Storm looked very good throughout the first 10-15 minutes of game 1. Game 2, a little bit less so. And it does seem to me, Dimes, that a lot of the issues that the Storm are having, at least in this set, are inconsistency in their ability to move forward aggressively, confidently, fill in the blank to take these engagements. They picked, again, a very all-in style of composition. You don't get to play the poke game. You don't get to take the fight slow. You have a Hades as your mid laner and an Kuang as your solo laner. You have to all in all of these engagements. You have to be willing to jump in and be the initiators. And I just didn't see that from them. I mean, you can look at the damage numbers that the Xibalba Storm have. It was next to nothing for anybody other than Shipiigami, who was doing the Lord's work and pumping out the damage. But if you don't have space to work with, if you don't have anybody diving the enemy backline, it's just so difficult to play as a Heimdallr, as a backliner, as any character in the game. I think that if the Storm want to move forward from this week and collect anything, it's got to be confidence. They have to be willing to pull the trigger and not just let an enemy team walk all over them.
Xibalba Storm with a little bit of work to do here, still in phase 2. Haven't found a win yet, but certainly one on the way for them. Meanwhile, the Aaru Scorpions with a nice bounce back 2-0 victory after their loss to the Valhalla Valkyries. Certainly going to be on the up and up here as we continue phase 2 of the SEC. But that's going to wrap it up for tonight's North American broadcast. Make sure to tune in bright and early tomorrow at, 9 a.m. Eastern for a little bit of European SCC action, and then stick around after the SPL for a North American SCC action. You're not gonna want to miss it as we're heating up here in week number 3. Thank you so much for joining us, for Kaizo, for our wonderful producer Phoenix, for our spectator Rosie, for myself, for everyone here. We'll catch you next time. Stay hydrated.